digital experience that people have online, it's not necessarily different than if they, for example, open a Netflix account. They do have certain expectations of the banking journey, which means they have a bit more acceptance for the friction. They, in fact, don't expect zero friction. So it's more about the things they take for granted. They take for granted that it's going to be secure. So they're okay that there will be some things that are requiring additional steps. But what's important to them is that there aren't any unnecessary steps. And they expect that if they give the information once, that the bank will remember to make it easier for them. So one thing that banks or financial services providers have to think about is that having the right security for the right user is more important than having the top security for everyone. You obviously will want to find a one-size-fits-most, but you need to realize that you will have users that require more security for certain things or certain transactions that perhaps require more. So right security for the right user is key. Now, there are certain things that are harder to detect. And if you're able to track what are the traditional behavioral patterns of your customers and your users, and use it to identify as an additional factor or perhaps several new factors to determine if that is the right person. So let's say a password was stolen, or let's say a credential was stolen if you're already in the passwordless world. Just entering that or using that token or using that key to go in is one way. Being able to determine that that person perhaps is transacting at a different time of the day that that person usually does, or that the transaction is much higher than usual. The account perhaps to which money is being transferred is completely new at a very odd time. Those are things that could be detected with behavioral biometric analysis. And that's something that's very much worth to consider. There's this term called digital banking journey that many are using. And what's important to realize is that it doesn't necessarily need to require remote. Sometimes it very much is. But the fact that it is digital can also facilitate use cases or situations in multiple locations, which very much might include a bank. So we need to think about the very first step, something that many of us forget, having the very first bank account or opening a bank account when you perhaps don't have a lot of banking experience. It's that very first time. That's where it starts. And it means you need to identify yourself and also allow it to be verified. So that's called identity verification. And that's something that is increasingly interesting, even in very well-developed banking markets, where you're looking at traditional banks or credit unions, for example, that have been operating in similar ways for years, but that are now realizing that, perhaps if I'm able to do this onboarding or part of the onboarding digitally, I can facilitate the rest of the journey. After that, we're seeing a very clear trend towards mobile banking. So mobile first is where people are going. And that's becoming, the de facto definition of digital banking in some way. At HID, we believe in enhancing the user experience without compromising on security. You'll notice that I'm actually not talking about compromising one or the other or even choosing one over the other. I'm talking about having the right balance. That's why organizations around the world that are part of some of the most regulated industries choose us. We're not only excelling in the physical space with physical security, we also have a deep expertise and resources around the world striving to secure digital experiences for the banking journeys, and very much they're physical as well. So we have a well-rounded experience when it comes to security. We even design and print passports, for example. So when it comes to organizations that understand what a secure identity is, we truly are a player worth looking into.